Bonjour, Shelby.
Bonjour Steve,
Comment ça va?
ça va très bien.
Très bien.
Et toi?
Bon. Ah, ça va très bien, merci. It's interesting. We're going to talk about French, of course, and we always begin in English, and then we go over some lesson when you share your screen with us. But I was just thinking today, there's all this talk about opening up schools and universities, and how much should be done online or remotely, and how much needs to be done in the classroom, and this kind of thing. And so I was just thinking about how the world of learning has changed. When I see my wife, for example, the amount of things that she learns on YouTube, whether it be making sourdough bread or golf or music, or if I have a coffee maker and it's something is flashing, clean it or whatever, and I don't know how to clean it, I go to YouTube. So many things now that we are able to learn on our own, as long as we're curious and know what it is we want to learn. And so I was thinking, that also applies to languages. Like, it used to be that the teacher had this mystery, like, I know French, so you don't know French. I know French, so I'm going to give you, drip by drip, all my knowledge on French. Whereas now you don't need that. I can look anything up, assuming I want to learn the language. Now, of course, a lot of kids in school don't want to learn anything, so you absolutely need the teacher to crack the whip or somehow, induce them to want to learn something. But for university students, if they actually know what they want to learn, they can go find it. So I think to that extent, the world has changed quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. There's a running joke with me and my friends that there's really expensive state schools and universities and Ivy League schools, and then there's YouTube University.
Oh, good. I just halted notifications on Slack there, but yeah, I think that's really important. I saw where now we're wandering off the subject, but it doesn't matter because it has to do with language learning. Like, I have learned so many languages on my own using LingQ, of course, but because I'm curious, because and I get help from the community as to where to find resources and stuff like this. But I look up what I need to look up: Romanian grammar or Arabic verbs. It's all there. I don't need a teacher to give it to me. And if I had gone to, say, UBC here, University of British Columbia, to learn Russian, I still wouldn't speak Russian. And yet I've done 10 languages, and I've listened to audiobooks on the history of Russia, Ukraine, Poland, and I've read books and stuff like that. You can learn so much more on your own without waiting for the teacher to tell you what to do. I think the world has changed. Yeah, and so then you see Harvard that's going to charge $50,000 for online courses. In other words, they're not going to reduce the price.
Right.
So they've got all this physical
YouTube remains free. Yeah.
It remains free. And if they have a wonderful teacher, professor there, he or she can access the world, not limited to the 200 people you can cram into a lecture hall. Like, something's wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah, the world is completely shifting, and to your point too about you have to be you have to want to learn, right? And this is a reoccurring theme lately in my life. There's two different important aspects to doing anything, learning being one of them, and one is your capability, but the one that comes before that is your willingness. And they're independent of one another, but combined, they're going to make that magic equation. If you have them both, to be able to acquire a new skill or to level up in your career or whatever it is. But usually the willingness has to come first, right? Because no matter how capable you are of doing something, which everyone's capable of learning a language, right? But they have to also be willing to do that. And that's why, the internet can be this like magical resource for people, but it could also be just a bunch of noise. It depends on how you use the tool.
Absolutely. And, I think, obviously not everyone is going to learn to run the 100 yards or 100 meters or whatever it is. There's a big difference in ability there. But when it comes to learning languages, there are differences in ability, and obviously people who have learned more than one language have a big advantage. But that difference is not so great. It's the willingness, the desire, the confidence, the interest. That's by far the biggest factor. Anyway, now that we've covered all that philosophy, how's your French going? And so therefore, no, where I was leading with that is, so really the willingness, the curiosity has to be the driver. So I don't want to say today we're going to do the subjunctive, or today we're going to do the future tense or the conditional tense, because you may not be ready for that, you may not want that, that may be something that you're not interested in right now. So I prefer to do what we've been doing, go through some texts, and then if you have specific issues that you could Google for, but since I happen to have learned a bit of French, if I can answer those questions, I will. If I don't answer them, or if it's before next week, you can also look them up. But the driver has to be the learner, not the teacher, in my opinion.
I completely agree.
Okay, so let's and one more general philosophy thing. I do believe in the mini stories. So I think very often, if we're talking about school children, they don't know what to go looking for. So the teacher has to suggest, do this, do that, do something else. In language learning, I think to some extent the teacher can, at least at an initial stage, suggest this might be good for you. Or if you don't know if you're interested in music or in whatever,
right, like point you
French
towards
film you might be able to find it here. But I do believe that the mini stories, I've found that they're not only a good place to break into the language, but they remain sort of, I call them like the fitness. They're the language gym, because I always go back to them and I always discover new things, and I'm just training in the basic verbs and the basic structures of the language. Then I get bored and I go charge off and explore something which is genuinely interesting to me, and I'm gathering more words and stuff. But then I come back to the mini stories, even though I have no more blue words there, and I do them again and again, and I listen to them so often that gives me the base from which I can start expressing myself. So I just would recommend that you stay with the mini stories and do listen to them a lot, because it tends to groove certain language habits. But you get tired of it after a while.
Yeah, exactly. I'm already seeing that happening with the mini stories, and I haven't proceeded. You and I were originally thinking we were going to focus mostly on mini stories for this series, and then we've kind of branched off into other content that I've explored. Right. So I think I've now gone through like 9 of them. So like really slow, you could say, right. But I continue to listen back to them. I have them on my playlist and I listen to them, and exactly what you described is happening to me. I'm in some ways I'm just really internalizing the sentence structure and the pronunciations. But then every once in a while I notice something different. And then I noticed, I mean, this happened to me in the last couple of weeks, that I'm starting to just understand it in French instead of just trying to translate back and forth between my mind, like, oh, this equals that, right? But I'm loving having the variety too. Like, that's keeping me like able to come back to the mini stories, that I have this music and the Le Petit Prince, and I have this other inner French videos that I've been watching. So it's a nice combination that keeps me interested no matter what. You know what I mean? Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, first of all, I often repeat what Manfred Spitzer said, we need repetition and we need novelty. And I think the fact that you're curious and that you have these other interests and you're exploring, I mean, that's a good thing. Because I think there is a danger if you only do the mini stories, you can get, again, in anything we only do something of, we can get in a rut.